So let's head down to the match. Hello and welcome. Budde is on the bottom of your screen. He's 1-4, all by himself in last place. Would love to get out of that hole. Martell is on the top of your screen with a mentor control deck that isn't all that well set up for Storm, but he does have that main deck Flusterstorm in his hand. What do you think of these draws, Eric?
Kai's draw is close to great. He has exactly the interaction he wants. This probe is really, really, really good because it allows him to know that there is no misstep, there is no force of will. He can Ritual Duress, take the best card, which is probably Black Lotus in this case, because he can also resolve Defense Grid. He has no threat, though.
Right.
And if he ends up playing Badlands, he doesn't have a black source either, and his opponent is Strip Mine. So this is actually an interesting hand, and how it plays out should definitely... I'm not sure how... It will really depend on what he draws off this probe to decide what he wants to do. Either way, it's a strong opening. He's not going to be under any pressure for a while unless Tom draws Mentor. But again, he gets to duress the Black Lotus, which is huge for a hand that has multiple Delve spells, a bunch of mana, and a Flusterstorm that's going to be pretty close to dead. And actually, there's
Basic Swamp. Now he's got the Black Source. Still has no business spell though. He's got to rely on the top of his deck to deliver something up. The next he's got a couple of turns. Would you say?
He's got a bunch of turns. Tom's not doing anything for a while, and Defense Grid, he can resolve it right now if he wants. He doesn't actually have to. He could hold on to Dark Ritual and hope to draw something like Necro or Dark Petition, and hope that Tom bricks on his first turn. He can duress this Black Lotus. Flusterstorm can't counter Defense Grid. That being said, it's a risk. If Tom draws something to stop this Defense Grid, well, everything could change.
I think I just go duress into I don't think I use the Dark Ritual here.
I agree with you.
Well, he's going to go for all of it.
It's tough because this doesn't leave you with any good draws off the top right now. But you're expecting to have so much time that hopefully that doesn't matter. Defense Grid getting down, guaranteeing it resolves is huge. Let's say Tom just draws like a Preordain. His odds of finding something like Force of Will with 3 looks is not terrible. That being said, he still has to draw something like Preordain or else he just doesn't have anything.
And by playing that Mox Ruby, he tells Kai what his draw step was. Oh, just draw another Dark Ritual off the top. No problem.
Can we get the graveyards on screen? So the delve count is actually quite important in this matchup, as is just knowing what's in the graveyard, period, when you have the Storm deck. Yawgmoth's Will is big, and making sure you have Spell Mastery, which tends to be very easy, definitely relevant. Now, Dark Ritual's a very good draw, but he's just... The Hurkyl's Recall is one of the worst cards in his deck, period. It could generate some Storm down the road, but he doesn't have any mana artifacts anyway. So right now, Kai is just kind of not doing anything.
How long do you sit on this duress?
Well, he knows there's only one unknown. The Mox Ruby got played. The 2 cards in hand don't do anything that he knows about. Flusterstorm is essentially dead right now, although that won't be the case potentially in a few turns. Hurkyl's Recall can actually turn that off despite not doing much. Just bouncing the Mox during an end step could be relevant. And actually, Kai's just going to take that now. That does leave Tom a lot closer to casting his Dig 3 time. He can actually cast it next turn, and Tom knows it. Dig or Treasure Cruise.
This is Kai's theory there that he can't take... Because there's both a Dig and a Treasure Cruise in hand, he can't turn them both off. He may as well... One will turn the other off.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's like, all right, you get to cast one of these, but you're going to be a million miles away from the other. Kai's still depending on the top of his deck to deliver up something.
Yeah.
But also not under any pressure. Yeah. I don't know if it counts as depending on the top of your deck when you're casting what? The Cruise or the Dig?
I don't know.
I don't know which of those is better here.
I mean, Dig generally does more, but all resources seem pretty decent now when defense grid's in play, that you don't actually mind drawing the lands. You might actually need them to play threats. Dig Through Time is just the more powerful card in this deck, period. And so if he's looking to get a faster clock on there, just find the Mentor. It's generally right to lean towards casting Dig.
On cue, Dig finds Monastery Mentor and Wasteland.
Yeah, that's a good dig. He's got a decision on what to actually waste here.
I was just thinking the same thing. Which do you Wasteland?
I would lean towards Academy, although it doesn't generally work out as well for this current hand. But a lot of Kai's good draws do involve drawing more cards, so getting rid of that blue source, especially one that could be explosive like Academy, one of the best cards ever printed, I think makes the most sense.
Academy's the more powerful card. That said, the only black source? And the fact that Kai hasn't played another black source, he's probably not slow-rolling one, right?
Yeah, the odds of drawing another black source goes up dramatically when you have access to blue mana, though.
That's fair. Yeah, he did get the only blue source his way.
So Tom's got the decision to leave up Force of Will, which he can actually cast now, or play the other Mentor to increase the clock. He gets punished if he plays Mentor if Kai is able to find exactly like Yawgmoth's Bargain. He'll basically win the game on the spot. If he doesn't find it for a turn, though, Tom's going to win the game.
Yeah, I think you go for it. I think you tap out. Kai's clearly just hoping to top deck something. What are the odds it's going to be this precise turn that he finally comes up with business? Well, apparently they're 100%.
Yeah, this might do it. What else is in his graveyard? He can go get Yawgmoth's Will, and it's going to represent at least 6 mana. Oh, he's got a third ritual and the probe. Yeah, it's a ton of mana.
Yeah, rit. This is just lethal, right? DT for Yawgmoth's Will, rit. DT for Tendrils. Bang. Yep. Wow, Tom topped out for that Mentor. Would you have tapped out for it? I should have asked you before we saw Kai's draw.
I already thought about it beforehand, and my answer was yes. So
yeah, you and I both agreed with Tom's line, I guess. Did not work out, though.
Well, my answer was yes. Whether my answer was correct in that I should have, I don't know. It would require more thinking, some calculations. It's tough because they didn't have anything last turn. If you get to untap with 2 Mentors in play, you can guarantee that game's over. But he didn't get to, so.
Yeah, now he's...
Yeah, Demonic Tutors.
Oh, he drew Dark Petition off the probe, I guess?
Yeah.
The Storm counts should be lethal at this point, right?
Yeah, he played Ritual, Tutor, Yawgmoth. That's 4. Ritual, 7. So Demonic Tutor will end the game. He also still has a land drop if he wants it.
Right. No need to show off. Storm count's already 11. Kai Budde trying to climb out of last.
Yeah, that was a solid top deck. Something that Kai has been known for in VSL and his entire life. But he had some mediocre draws going up to it. It's tough to say how good his draws were. He drew the Black Source, which was good, but still wasn't a threat. He drew the Ritual, which was good, but still didn't actually do anything. And then he found the action card, of which he had a number of. I mean, he could have drawn... Yawgmoth's Will would have given him a chance. It would have at least given him the land drop and a Gitaxian Probe to maybe find something else. And, of course, 4 Dark Petitions, Demonic Tutor, and... Yawgmoth's Bargain, and probably a few other cards as well. Now,
whose deck gets better now that we get to sideboard?
I would say the answer is actually bad enough for Tom that it's probably still Kai. I mean, he gets to add more copies to Defense Grid. And honestly, like we mentioned in the pregame, it really rings true here. Tom built a deck that was very good against shops. His sideboard has 2 Energy Flux, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Kataki Warwage. It doesn't have that much against Storm. Like we saw him against Chris Bakula, actually. This was one of the more interesting ones. You and Rich Shea were doing commentary, and you commented on the fact that he left Supreme Verdict in his deck instead of Balance. And it turns out that if he had drawn the Balance, which was a 1-of, that the exact scenario that you and Rich brought up during sideboarding, if there was a Necropotence down and a bunch of Goblins in play,
and Tom's hand was empty, so it would have been a mind twist. Yeah,
it would have potentially locked Chris out of the game. He would have had 1 more draw with a Necro because he would have been at 2 life. But odds are that Tom would have won the game. That being said, Supreme Verdict is better because you can pitch it to Force of Will, worse because that scenario is, it's not gonna be a discard 7. That's for sure. And you may
Yeah,
not
no,
go past it.
we should have mentioned the fact that Supreme Verdict is blue. I do think that is the argument in favor of Supreme Verdict that we were not articulating. That said, I still think Balance does enough stuff that I would have it in my deck over something.
Well, the beginning of Kai's hand looks close to absurd.
Wow. Once again, though, it's mana and a defense grid, but there's no business spell.
Yep, and it's not as much mana, so Tom's deck actually does have 4 Wastelands and a Strip Mine, so that is a very real thing to keep in mind for this particular matchup where Kai's not going to have very many lands.
Tom brought in Kataki. That defense grid is going to pick up an upkeep. Hilarious.
Yeah, Kataki's pretty bad in this matchup.
But his sideboard is not well set up, so I mean, you do what you got to do, right?
I would certainly bring it in. I'm just commenting on the fact that it's not as good as you might think against a deck that's full of artifacts, because the defense grid sits in play, but most of the artifacts actually you hold as long as possible for a storm count anyway, and so it's not quite as taxing as it would be for an artifact-based deck, which Storm really is. It's not back-breaking in that same way. That being said, putting a tax on defense is certainly real.
Mulligans for Kai.
Yeah, it's reasonable. His hand was good, but not amazing.
This hand is turn 1 wheel or twister if it resolves. But he's got no ability to clear a path.
Yeah, if he does that, that also means attacks on both his Moxes, which is pretty fantastic for Tom.
Yeah.
So Tom's going to get to counter this spell and then really put Kai in a corner, because the Kataki is actually going to be great. The Supreme Verdict being blue being relevant right now because he gets to use the misstep if he wants to.
Yep. Totally coming up. Balance would not have been nearly as good this draw.
That being said, the misstep is countering a probe. It's not an ancestral recall. So it's not like, if that was a balance that Tom's just game plan falls apart, but it is nice that he gets to pitch this verdict that is essentially...
It's also denying Kai the information is of some value here. This Kataki is just going to blindside him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know that Kai can play it different, but...
No. This makes perfect sense. That being said, Tom's down to 2 cards. His clock isn't especially fast. Usually when that happens, Tom finds a mentor off the top. It's happened several times, but there's only 3 mentors in the deck, so not sure exactly how this plays out. Kai could easily find like a ritual to resolve this Time Twister potentially, or just another land in 2 turns if Tom doesn't find anything. That being said, if Time Twister resolves, Tom gets 7 new cards too. His hand is empty, so it's not like it's the most insane thing ever.
Yeah, you really prefer to have a defense down.
He actually can cast Time Twister now if he wants to use, let's say, a Mox Pearl to pay for Mox Jet, let the Pearl die, and,
That's probably the line, right?
Yeah, I would think so. That being said, Tom's going to draw 7 cards here. His hand is Island. So this is far from an amazing Time Twister. Well, what? That had
Whoa, he just let them go?
The upkeep's only 1, correct?
That's how I thought Kataki worked.
Yep, that was just a punt/misclick.
Is Kai thinking that it's energy flux and the upkeep is 2?
Wait, what is going on? Why did Tom not pay for his? I'm confused.
Yeah, no idea. I mean, you may as well just turn it sideways and have it pay for itself, is your point.
Yes.
Right? Especially if you have Tolarian Academy in your deck. All right, well, Mana Vault off the top means Kai does get to go for this Time Twister. So, look at the blue cards for Tom!
Yeah. That was about the best draw 7 in history.
2 Force of Will, a Misstep, and a Flusterstorm. Plus 2 random blue cards that can cantrip his way to more action. Unbelievable.
Did the players say anything in chat about this Kataki? I'm very curious as to how that happened. Bizarre.
Oh, just a Spell Pierce. Might as well.
Just incredible.
Mana Vault's going to die. Telerity Academy is not going to be tapping for any mana.
Well, yeah, he might just pay for the Mana Vault because of Academy. You know, it's already evening out that way. I mean, he's taking a point of damage off it.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm willing to take a point of damage to be neutral on mana.
Yeah, having it in your graveyard is actually pretty reasonable, too, when you're playing Yakmos.
Mm-hmm. Tom finds the Monastery Mentor with this Preordain.
Mm-hmm.
Sure looking like we're headed to Game 3.
Yeah, if he did not find Mentor, despite having this handful of all these great permission spells, I would not have counted Kai out of it. There are certainly reasonable draws in his deck to get him out of this with, discard Defense Grid, where you're actually going to wipe out some of these cards pretty quickly. Cabal Therapy is basically a must counter because it's going to name Force of Will first anyway.
Yep.
So
but that Mentor sends Tom from, 80% to 95 or something? Maybe 70 to 90?
You can't really cast it right now. There's just no reason to tap mana when your hand is so good. But, yeah, it's definitely a threat. If you could just put it into play right now, it would be pretty amazing.
Wow, Wasteland.
Yeah, Wasteland's solid.
Are you blasting away at an Underground here, waiting to see what Kai does with Kataki's upkeep first, or...?
Good question. I wonder if Kai's going to wait for his upkeep to fire off Ancestral using that Academy while it's still gimmick mana, if Tom does nothing.
Is Kai going to let that 1 mana go unused, though?
Well, he gets
I don't...
No, this walks into permission.
Use the Pierce and save the Flusterstorm, right?
So... Wow, can Kai win this game? No, he just doesn't have enough mana. If he draws a good mana source here, he actually gets to play Therapy. It gets Force of Will, or he names Force of Will, either way. And he has Dark Ritual. He's not far away from Bargain. But he just doesn't have enough mana yet. So if he's able to find, I guess he needs, a Black Lotus, really. Man, if he had those Moxes in play...
Oh, wow. Sure. If they'd been paying for themselves all along, then Wasteland would have hit Academy.
Yeah, it would have.
But yeah, here's the Therapy that Tom has to Force a Will. Right? The interesting question, I mean, Tom spent a second blue mana on 2 Preordains last turn. If he had declined to cast the second Preordain, he could have left off both Pierce and Flusterstorm. I don't know if that second Preordain was worth it. I mean, finding the Wasteland was nice.
Yeah, I really did not like casting the Preordain. It taxes your mana pretty dramatically in this spot.
You like the first one, but not the second?
Yeah, casting the first one
that's
for
where
sure. See what you get. But with your hand being as stacked as it was, just having the Preordain as a blue card to pitch to Force, to go with having up Spell Pierce Flusterstorm and Force, it's pretty amazing. Plus, it's a very nice card to have in your hand. Let's say you play the Monastery Mentor down. If you drew Black Lotus or you could tap mana, or had a couple more mana sources in play. Could get that Mentor down at no cost. It would be pretty nice. Drawing a blue card is huge. That Force of Will wasn't on before the blue card, so. Now there's not really good draws for Kai. If he finds, let's say, Defense Grid, he can get Force of Will. Tom doesn't even have to Force of Will, though, because he can pay for Defense Grid. Duress doesn't actually do that much. So... I don't think there are outs right now for Kai.
And it's a 2-turn clock for Tom as well. I mean, Kai's down to 9, and he's facing 5 power before Prowess triggers. Oh, 2 polluted deltas these last 2 turns. Not exactly what Kai was looking for.
Yeah, again, I think we're at the point where he was just dead, but this ended up being a pretty cool game.
I agree.
The Kataki, that was just weird. I don't know what happened there. Maybe there's just something obvious that we're all missing. I don't see it. I guess no one in chat said anything either, so odds of us missing something are not very high.
I think it's just annoying to pay for the tap the Moxes every turn. They're conserving clicks.
Kai has to at least use 1 to pay for the other on the first turn.
Sure.
Because you could just play a 3-drop.
Right.
Just pay for your Mox Jet with the Pearl. That's just silly. Come on. Plus, does he want him in his deck after he casts Time Twister? There's no upside to letting them both die. To letting one die makes sense.
Yep.
To letting no die make a lot of sense too. But yeah, that was just bizarre. Yeah, it's
Tom,
possible Kataki is just bugged. I don't think that's true because I mean, it certainly wasn't bugged when I played Kataki last season.
it crossed my mind. They're about to totally change the way colorless mana or floating mana works. It could have been part of like there's a big new patch going in tomorrow in order to deal with Oath of the Gatewatch cards. So be warned out there, by the way, if you're not following the Magic Online guys on Twitter, there is the way in which if you're one of the guys who taps mana first and then plays a spell, you're gonna have to start clicking on mana to get it to spend. And so who knows if that's gonna change the way stuff like Kataki works.
Yeah,
Shouldn't, but could.
that being said,
That's tomorrow. That's not what's going on today.
yeah, and even if that were the case at some point, the Moxes would have tapped and there would have been like black mana floating or blue mana floating, even if it was a struggle to pay for them. But it looked like they just died.
Yeah, I think it only like the difference between having them pay for themselves only actually matters if Kai draws the card Tolarian Academy.
Yeah,
And then the Time Twister thing matters a little bit about shuffling them into your deck versus having them in play.
Like
That said, he did, and there's no reason not to other than just 2 clicks and upkeep.
the thing is, having them in the graveyard can make a lot of sense for this Storm deck because it's great if he casts Yawgmoth's Will. That being said, the last spell in his hand, the only card in his hand was Time Twister.
Right.
Which he's going to cast and is going to hope resolves. And so they're going to get shuffled in anyway. And so that particular card makes no sense.
All right, new game. Kai's hand looks explosive. But what can he get through Tom's Force of Will?
Well, no misstep is a nice start.
Yeah, that's what we just learned. And Tom has only the 1 Force of Will to defend himself with. Can Kai get 2 threats?
No, he's going to be 1 mana short. He has 7 mana and his 2 cards cost 8.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, and obviously it doesn't have Spell Mastery yet. So how do you play this?
Well, he's already gone pretty much all in here.
So you're just Cabal Ritual, tapping Mana Vault, and then Twist? That doesn't sound right. Like, I think you hold Cabal Ritual and Dark Petition, don't you?
Yeah, I think I would have cast Time Twister tapping the Jet, but that might be wrong.
That was my first impression, too, was tap the Jet, not the Mana Vault. That way you have the Mana Vault next turn.
It's a lot better for you. It's way better for Kai to do it like this if Time Twister resolves. I guess you just have to figure out what the odds of that happening are.
And the thing is, he can cast the Dark Petition this way, too, right? Like, next turn, he can go Cabal Ritual into Dark Petition with Spell Mastery.
Mm-hmm.
So his line seems pretty good. His line is way better if the Twister resolves. You and I are both just saying, well, if there's a Force of Will, what's my best play for next turn?
Yeah, I feel like things are going to be going very well for him if Time Twister resolves anyway because he has 7 mana available next turn and 7 cards against Kai's hand of whatever, or Tom's hand of whatever it is. And so I would want to play it safer for that. But, whatever. It is what it is. Now, this ends up working out way, 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 way worse for Kai because he actually could have potentially paid for Flusterstorm if he had Mana Vault untapped. That being said, he can untap Mana Vault on his turn if he wants to.
Yeah, he's probably going to cast Dark Petition instead. Yeah, basically, Kai could have had his Mana Vault untapped instead of his Mox Jet.
Yeah.
But Tom did have the Force of Will, so now let's see what happens. Stony Silence would be kind of a beating. Ooh, Tom is going to... God, he loves those Preordains.
I would cast
just leave up Flusterstorm. You would cast Preordain here?
Yeah, I mean, Kai just emptied his hand to try to cast Time Twister. And I think that if he's able to find, let's say, Black Lotus to get Stony Silence down, or he's able to find a Mental Misstep or Force of Will in the top 3, things are looking very good for him. If he doesn't cast Preordain, he doesn't have a very high likelihood of casting Stony Silence next turn.
Yeah, the fact that he had no land probably swings it over to Preordain. I'll buy that.
It's a very big loss to not potentially cast Preordain. That being said, he did draw Brainstorm, so this is the one case where I was evaluating before the draw step because I was thinking about it during Kai's turn.
Yeah.
The fact that he drew Brainstorm actually changes things pretty dramatically, though. I might actually be leaning towards
blue for Flusterstorm. So Tom does not have up a blue mana for Flusterstorm, and Kai wasn't not out of gas. He's got Cabal Ritual. Now, here's the Sapphire, and Dark Petition. What do you get with your Dark Petition, Eric Froelich?
He doesn't have a lot of choices besides Necro here, right? What else can he do for 4 black mana? He didn't even leave the blue float in. He's just all in.
Yeah, all right.
That being said, Necro is a really good card.
Yeah.
He's going to get Stony Silence, which is great. Like, so good right now. He's got a now, which of these artifacts still deal damage to him with Necro in play?
I believe Necro turns off the Mana Vault. There's no draw step for Mana Vault to trigger in. So Necropotent's actually... The Mana Crypt still flips because that flips an upkeep, but the Mana Vault no longer triggers.
Very unlucky, actually, for Kai. Not that, in that he drew Mox Sapphire instead of any land. A land would have been so much better this turn. That being said, he has a Necro in play. Polarity
Academy still tapped for a bunch.
That is really good. Yeah,
black. It's all blue, though. Insane. He's going to have no access to black mana. Well, I mean, he has to either choose between having access to black mana or Tolarian Academy. Stony Silence is going to turn off his Black Lotus.
Oh, yeah, of course. Completely correct.
I mean, I'm assuming Tom just windmill slammed Stony Silence here.
Yeah, you are correct, sir.
All right, no artifacts, and now I have no idea what happens from here. I mean, I guess Kai just necros some more, fires off a Duress, and calls it good.
Well, he gets the start on Gitaxian Probe, which is nice.
Are you sure? Do you want to pay 2 life?
You don't have to pay 2 life.
Oh, pay blue mana for Gitaxian Probe. Sure. All right. Yes, pay the blue for Pay the blue for Git Probe, and then probably Duress. Lose the Mana Crypt flip. That was not the plan, Kai.
Yeah.
Mana Crypt flip's very relevant right now.
Yeah, again, if he had a land last turn, things are just so good for him right now. Because he can just he could just Demonic Tutor for Chain of Vapor and win. If he had a land in play instead of that Mox Sapphire, he would get to play Academy and the game would be legit over on the spot. Not the case now, though.
Well, he doesn't have to Necro for very much because he can play a land, and then next turn he can play the other land in his hand. It'll be an Academy. So he can DT for Chain next turn. Like, just don't lose to a Mana Crypt flip.
Next turn, Tom's going to have access to an additional, 6 cards at a minimum.
Well...
It's a tough spot.
It is awkward. I mean, I think this turn, though, is Gitaxian Probe, Duress, and Gitaxian Probe, playing blue, sack Polluted Delta for a black source, cast a Duress, Necro for not very many, right? Fetch land takes you to 6. Assume you lose the Mana Crypt flip, so you're at 3. You Necro for 2 cards, and then hope you can stitch it together next turn. Right? What's the alternative?
Good question. I imagine that I would take Kai pretty high on my list of people to figure it out. There's just not that much you can do with the Stony Silence in play.
Right. I mean, all the Demonic Tutor lines run out of mana as soon as you cast DT with this hand.
He does have the... he could just DT right now for Chain.
Instead of Duress and Gitaxian Probe, yes, he could. Right. You're either casting Git Probe to plus Duress or you're casting Demonic Tutor. I think I like Git Probe Duress better. I think.
Could also just, he does have a 1 out of 42 chance of just drawing the Chain.
True. All the more reason to like the Gitaxian Probe line.
I guess Hurkyl's Recall is not in his deck anymore. Otherwise, that would be pretty sweet because it would actually turn off his Mana Crypt flips. If he does get Chain, he could also bounce his Mana Crypt and then sack a land to bounce Stony Silence as well. Tom does have Misstep in hand, though, and Flusterstorm, and multiple card drawing spells. So, this is a tough game. I don't know exactly how Kai's boarded. He brought in an island, didn't he? I guess Tom's playing 4 Wastelands.
Yeah. If you have land in your sideboard and your opponent is playing 4 Wasteland, just bring it in. Maybe the Duress is better next turn than this turn, so that's the argument to Demonic Tutor now?
It could be, but he is taxed on black mana currently.
Well, I mean, you're spending 1 black mana this turn. The question is just whether you're spending on a Demonic Tutor or a Duress.
Mm-hmm. I think my starting point is paying blue to cast Gataxian Probe, but...
Yeah, I still like that line better than the Demonic Tutor line. Especially because I want to know what that card is, right? I just get more information.
Well, I wonder if it gets misstepped. I don't think it would.
It's a good question. I mean, if you're Tom, aren't you just thinking about Chain of Vapor as Kai's way out of this?
Well, you could just die with Stony Silence in play.
Okay, Kai's going to cast Demonic Tutor. Totally reasonable. Gets basic Swamp because he's worried about Wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
We are, of course, assuming Chain of Vapor came in from the sideboard. That is the get-out-of-jail-free card.
He definitely had it in a hand that he mulliganed in either game.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it was game 2.
I think this is the point where you do look over the rest of the cards in your deck and make sure there's not some better line.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing else he can do this turn with a Stony Silence in play because he has no way to make a mana.
Yeah, I mean, you probably play the Black Lotus just so that you have room in your hand.
He does have a Simian Spirit Guide in his deck that probably came out, but...
Yeah, gets the chain. Puts the Lotus on the table. And then I would Necro for 2 here.
Yeah. Well, Necro for 2 or Necro for 5?
How lucky are you feeling? Come on, 2. I think your hand is... Yeah, your hand is good enough to win. And it's good enough to win through 1 counter because you get to throw a Duress in before you chain. Mm-hmm. I don't think you have to assume you're going to win the flip. You've got enough cards.
Yeah. He's going to need something, though, to... I guess this Academy is really huge. That it basically counters a Flusterstorm, which is big.
Yeah. Plus...
That being said, Tom's going to get so many looks at drawing more counters. Another misstep will basically end this game. Oh, there is the Wasteland.
All right, so if Tom doesn't come up with anything else, Kai is going to... What? Duress is going to hit misstep one way or the other. And then Chain can hit the Stony Silence with Kai able to tap Academy to pay for Flusterstorm. So Kai wins unless Tom comes up with something. Is that how you've got it? Yeah, I mean, the Flusterstorm and the Misstep are not enough for Tom to defend himself with. He's got to hit something off the Gush and or the Brainstorm.
Does look that way. That being said, that's a lot of cards to look at.
Oh, yeah.
Not sure about leaving white mana floating. I don't know what that does for you.
The other copy of Stony Silence?
Oh, those are misses.
Yeah. White mana also casts Mentor, hypothetically.
Yeah, but Mentor's blank.
Oh, Force of Will off the Brainstorm.
Well, what's the card that's off screen? If it's not blue...
It's a Volcanic. Well, he can Force of Will pitching the Flusterstorm, and now he can counter the Chain, right? Duress and Misstep cancel one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Force of Will counters Chain of Vapor, and now Kai, what? He can't play his Dark Petition without resolving a Chain on Stony Silence, so Kai is down to... His redraw is the Gataxian Probe card. That's his redraw.
He doesn't have to lose the flip to Mana Crypt. He may end up getting a few more cards out of this. He could win 2 flips in a row. He's 0-1 so far.
Fair.
There's still nothing on the other side of the table.
No, you make a good point. Tom's victory condition is Kai's Mana Crypt, so who
So
knows how many
how is
turns.
Chain of Vapor worded? Is it the whole spell? Like if Chain gets countered,
Pretty sure
there's
it
nothing
puts
you can do to
copies.
bounce Mana Crypt against the counter, right?
No.
I assume not, but the card's so old that I mean it doesn't make a lot of sense that he would be able to.
You're imagining him bouncing his own Mana Crypt and then trying to bounce the Stony Silence.
Right. If it made like two different copies,
Right.
then Tom wouldn't be able to counter both of them. That being said, he still has to win this.
He has to win this flip, which he did.
Okay.
Still 4 life. Yeah, it's you make the copy. You sack the land during the resolution of Chain of Vapor. So if it gets countered, you don't get to sack a land to make a copy. All right, pay a blue for Gitaxian Probe, which I presume Tom just lets happen.
Mana Crypt. What are the cards that are under the Necropotence? What did he discard earlier when I wasn't paying attention?
A fetch land?
Something?
Something blue.
Oh, that would have been another redraw. Interesting.
So this is relatively straightforward, right? I mean, Kai's got to work through what we just worked through. But he's going to play the Academy so that he has the ability to pay for Flusterstorm. He's going to duress.
Kai would have won the game if Tom had misstepped that.
Misstep the probe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. I assume that Academy taps for enough mana.
It taps for 6. Does 6 sound like enough? 6 sounds like enough to me.
Yeah, he's going to have to... They would already have been... actually...
Technically, the 6th one is a little...
Close. It would have been Misstep, Ruby, Duress, Flusterstorm, Chain. No.
Yeah.
It actually wouldn't have been enough. Like, Flusterstorm will count.
It's funny how the Ruby doesn't actually contribute to paying for Flusterstorm because it also ups the storm count.
Yeah. I actually think that if he misstepped this, the Flusterstorm would have still worked. Well, Kai is under no threat.
Other than its own mana crypt.
Go.
No threat.
Yeah,
he's certainly... Well, but he's still pinched on black mana. Like, you still want to fire off your duress here. That way you can potentially,
I'd say you could play Underground Pass if he wanted to. And reset the storm count. I guess it depends. There are draws, I think, in his deck where he might want to do that. To turn off Flusterstorm. I don't think it's likely, of course.
But your chain's still going to get Force-a-Willed if you can pay for Flusterstorm.
Well, I'm saying, let's say he draws, like, Duress here.
I'm firing off my Duress and seeing...
Oh, yeah, you can fire off the Duress. I'm saying
okay.
There's some chance that he doesn't Necro and doesn't do anything.
Wow.
It's unlikely. I'm just naming...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah. If I look, you can make the case for saying go rather than feeding a chain into what you can see as a Force-a-Will. But you Necro for 3.
It's even worse when your opponent has a Wasteland in hand, too. It's accomplishing less. That's a bad draw.
Oh, yeah, that was blank. Yeah.
All right, so I think Kai's just going to have to Necro for 3 and hope.
Now, do you misstep or Flusterstorm this? Just out of curiosity. From Tom's seat. He goes pay life for misstep. So he gets to leave up the Flusterstorm. That makes sense. Seems better this turn.
The only way that Flusterstorm isn't great is if they have Academy, which you don't know about.
Sounds right. Now, I think I'm with you. Kai plays Underground, and then Necro's for 3. So play Underground, play Ruby. Necro for 3.
Yeah. Sounds about right to me.
Underground's going to get wasted. You have to win the Mana Crypt flip.
You also have to hit on your 3 cards. I mean, you're Necro locked either way, whether you win the Crypt or flip or not.
Cool game.
Well, Tom has a very real chance of going 2-1 against probably his worst matchup.
It's a good point. God, such a big turn. I mean, Tom's either 2 games clear of last or tied for last, depending on this next turn cycle. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly favored. Kai needs to hit and then win a 50-50 to even have the game go on. Tom could also draw something good. Say Tom just draws like an Ancestral Recall. Or Treasure Cruise. Oh, it's Kai not Necro?
Kai did not Necro. He does have the ability to play Dark Petition next turn. Maybe he's thinking that's better than risking the Mana Crypt flip.
Oh, does he have enough mana? That's incredible.
I think so with the Academy.
Yeah. Wow. So he can just cast Chain on the Stony Silence. Is Kai gonna win? Just for sure?
So he goes end step, Chain, Stony Silence. Tom counters it one way or the other. Now, Kai needed Tom to not draw a blue card.
No, if Tom wastes this Underground Sea,
right,
he doesn't have the block to cast Petition.
Right. The Wasteland is crucial because Kai can't play both the Underground and the Academy. Although he may get another turn, right? It all depends how many Mana Crypt flips he's going to win. He gave himself the ability to lose a flip and keep playing.
Yeah.
Because he's seen that Tom's hand is a bunch of blanks, a Force of Will, and a Flusterstorm. Oh, he's going to feed Chain to the... Oh, he's going to bounce his own Crypt. Well, yeah, sure. If you're going to cast it, you start there. But Tom should absolutely counter this. Yeah. There's the Flusterstorm.
Yeah, so now Kai can't do anything on his turn.
Kai cannot do anything except play a land. So
still, if that Mock Sapphire draw had been a land from however many turns ago, he would have won several turns ago, but still would have been good to win this turn.
Now, the crucial Mana Crypt flip. Does Kai fall to 1? Was he right not to Necro? Wins the flip.
Well, now what do you do? Do you Necro for 3 or not?
Look, if you chose not to Necro last turn, what changed? Nothing changed. The odds of
drawing a blue spell in 2 turns? He knows the
I'm just saying, look, if you were going to Necro for 3, you would have done it last turn. Well, why would you decline last turn and do it now?
His hope was that Tom draws something he can cast and doesn't get wasted. If he didn't get wasted and Tom bricked, things work out well for him.
Yeah, no, Kai is not willing to lose to Mana Crypt. And Tom blanks! Tom has a Force of Will that he can't play. Kai is going to get to resolve it. What is this? This is Dark Petition for Yawgmoth's Will for Chain out of the graveyard, right?
It is that.
I think Kai wins.
Yep. Let's see if he wins the Mana Crypt flip. Yeah, he punted. He could have had 3
He could have had 3 extra cards. Kai's line totally worked, though. Like, he gave himself the ability to lose a flip and still implement this line of Dark Petition for Yawgmoth for Chain.
Like, I know we're all aware that Kai is one of the luckiest people to ever live. But he's like, I'm going to factor a line.
Sunday, Eric.
I'm going to play a line that involves me winning 3 coin flips and my opponent bricking twice in a row.
No, he played a line that allowed him to lose a coin flip. Our line would have required...
Sure. To win 2 out of 3 coin flips. And, yeah, you're right. Whatever. I mean, there's a reason he's the second best of all time. And now he gets to place to be. I would love to be the second best of all time. This is not a slight.
Tom could not draw the blue card. If Tom had drawn a blue card on either of his last 2 draw steps, he would win this match.
Either of the last 2 draw steps, he gushed and brainstormed and found a force.
He found a Force of Will. That's where he found the Force of Will.
Yeah, he did, but and 4 lands and bricked on his draw step. He found like Mox Pearl, 6 slams and Force of Will in 8 cards.
Yeah,
Which
and
is insane.
Unbelievable. Yeah, plenty of business in Kai's graveyard now that the Stony Silence is back. All of those artifacts tap for mana. He gets to sack his Lotus, and Tom knows he's done. So Tom scoops them up. Kai, I gotta agree with you. Kai got a little lucky there.
It's just insane. Like,
kind of crazy lucky.
Kai got incredibly lucky, kind of. I guess like his draws were actually like pretty bad, but I mean he had to win a bunch of coin flip and stuff. Martell got off the charts unlucky. That being said, the matchup was awful for Martell. Like, for him to have been that big a favorite, which he absolutely was, an astronomical favorite, that's a very lucky spot to be in. It's very unlikely to get to that point. That being said, 3 turns ago, like, Martell just had like the check mark next to his name. It was over. Like, he had an unlosable board state essentially, and got crazy unlucky from that point on. Like, much more so than I think I've seen anyone in. I can't even remember how long. Like, just
we've seen crazier top decks than what Kai had. We've had like Ancestral where you have to hit perfect. Like, I don't think it was the craziest, luckiest scenario that we've had, but it's in the top 5.
He drew 9 cards in a 20 land deck with some Moxes and hit 8 mana sources. Like, the Force of Will is an excellent card. That being said, any other, like even the Supreme Verdict would have done it.
Come on, Kai, what if Kai just keeps winning Mana Crypt flips? If that turn hadn't worked out, he would have Necroed for 3 and gone back at him the next turn.
That's true. Kai did not get lucky.
Wow. Well, that was a fun start to the evening. Kai Budde with win number 2. All of a sudden, the 5 of us that came in with 2 losses are all tied for last, more or less. Including Tom Martell is definitely tied for last at 2-4 with Kai. I'm sure I'll join them soon enough. Whew. What's next? I don't even remember. I know that
we're out.
We're done. Well done. All right, we will be back later. Oh, we've got the showdown for first places up now. David Ochoa and Rich Shea on the other side of the standings. 4-1 versus 4-1. Ochoa has already shown us once that he can beat Shops with his Storm list. If he does it again, he'll be in first place all by himself. So
yeah, this is the matchup that most. Well, I mean, Your and I's is also, it's basically the same thing. But the coin flip, the die roll is so important. It's tough for Webb. Rich Shea is 80% in die rolls. That's tough to beat. Like, your 20-80 dog. That being said, we just saw Kai win when he was less than 0.000001 to win. So it's VSL. Anything could happen. Webb could win the die roll, and Kai somehow. This is a vintage Super League where power and craziness happens.
Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back with pretty sure more of both.
With Hookah Trade, the world is your trade binder.